Hey, beautiful YouTube team. Just a quick one from me. Today, we've got the wonderful and amazingly inspiring Russell Manser on the show, who was an ex-bank robber. Now, just to jump in and tell you guys something quickly, we had a bit of trouble with syncing the audio up because of the online program that we use to Russell's track. We did the best that we could, but sorry about that. Hope you guys still enjoy the podcast. If you're struggling with it a little bit, you can go and listen to the audio version on our podcast. But yeah, just really hope you enjoy the YouTube channel and you're enjoying all the content coming out. As always, give us a like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the video. But yeah, looking forward to vibing in your digital screens again soon. Enjoy the show, everybody. Peace. All right, boom. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Real Drug Talk. I was just saying off camera, and I've got to stop saying this at the start of shows because I say I'm excited every time, which I am, but I'm extra excited for this podcast because the way of the world now in social media land, everyone lives on TikTok. And our guest today, Russell, is huge on there and has an awesome message. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to him and hear his story and everything that he's doing now. How you going, mate?
Good, Jack. I'm really good, man. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm really looking forward to it. As I do, I love sharing my message and my message of hope. You know, I mean, that's what I love it. I just love doing these things. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. No problem. Thanks for coming on. It probably goes more the other way. How we always start, and we'll kind of branch from there, but just to kind of paint the picture for the listeners and the watchers, can you give us the, and I know this is probably hard, you don't have to stick in the time frame exactly, but can you give us the 3-minute snapshot of your life and kind of what's led you to this point, and how drugs and alcohol fit into all of that as well?
Sure. Grew up in western suburbs of Sydney at a place called Mount Druitt. It's not the edge of the earth, but you can see it from there. You know, my heroes were, the people I looked up to were criminals. You know what I mean? They were the only ones that were really sort of getting ahead in life, that had any hint of any worth, or that looked like fun and looked like they were having fun. Unfortunately, it led me to, my criminal behaviour led me to a Darrick Boys Home, which is the subject of a 60-minute story, and I was sexually abused there. I learned. I applied my trade, learned a few things in the boys' home, and my offending behaviour escalated, which led me going to jail at 16.
Yep.
I was sexually abused and introduced to the drug heroin by a perpetrator just to keep me quiet. And the thing is with the heroin, when I found heroin, I just it numbed all my pain and took away all my shame and embarrassment and give me a sense of warmth and well-being. And it's set me on a trajectory of 23 years of prison and, some escape attempts and some real dark times with, I was talking to my partner recently about the fear that you have once you start using, once you feel your first withdrawal, they're coming off the heroin, and that fear that you live with and that fear that you avoid. So you constantly on the go to avoid that feeling of hanging out and withdrawing. And, basically, my life actually changed when I told my story to the Royal Commission, institutional abuse to sexual abuse, Royal Commission responses to child sexual abuse, and I started getting trauma counselling. I had a long period previously. I had 12 and a half years clean, but I had the underlying issue had never been dealt with, and that was the abuse itself. And until it did get dealt with, I was just putting a Band-Aid over it on a daily basis, and I managed to, fake it until I made it, and for fucking 12 and a half years. 12 and a half years had a bust. 12 and a half years had a bust on alcohol, which led me on a 10-year spiral to get back to recovery and well-being. And as I said, my story changed when I told my story to the Royal Commission, and now they started giving me proper trauma counselling, and, I started looking at my options in life and weighing up my life. And, today, as a result of that Royal Commission, I formulated, whilst I was in prison, the business that I have today. It's called The Voice of a Survivor, which helps survivors of institutional abuse, in particular sexual abuse, go through the compensation process, and got a good life today. They say in recovery, be careful what you pray for. You just might get it. I got it tenfold, and let me tell you, It's been overwhelming, but the journey that I'm on is just fucking amazing. I've got a purpose, and I've got a purpose, and I've got a passion for that purpose. And when I apply the passion to the purpose, I'm on the right track, and I'm never going to be lost again.
Yeah.
I think that's always been the thing for me. I didn't have a purpose, other than getting on, chasing drugs, getting on, using, taking myself into oblivion to avoid any feelings. Today, I front my feelings head on. I don't live in fear of my feelings and thoughts. They don't dictate me. They don't fucking dictate on who I am today. And I ride the wave. And I've been, through trauma counselling and recovery, I've been equipped with the skills to sort of to ride that, to surf the feelings and thoughts and you know what I mean, and triggers. And life's really good, helping survivors, being involved in other people's recovery journey, in particular being involved in people's healing journey is an amazing feeling. It's such. I've got 16,000 clients at the moment, 16,000 clients, and
wow,
we've been going for 5 years. And someone recently described me as a healer, and I was fucking really taken back by it, because healer is a real hippie word, and and healer. Here I am, this 100-kilo plus guy. I sort of didn't look at myself as fucking walking around with a tambourine and looking like Jesus and healing people, but I guess I am. I've got to take, I've got to put my hand up and say that, part of my journey is I've been given this gift to help people heal and tell their stories. And what a gift it is, man. It's what I'm so grateful that I have this gift. I have this gift, and it's an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling. Beach you this feeling here. I was always said, in recovery in the early days, create a life that's better than using. And man, I fucking got it. I got that life. I got that life. Created a life that you wouldn't want to gamble with by having a drug. And I don't roll the dice on this one, mate. It's too good.
So true. So true. So yeah, it kind of makes the hairs stand up on the back of my neck, because having met and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but having met a lot of people that have had and been through a circumstance like yourself and grown up and matured in those environments, it's really hard to kind of live, inverted commas, a normal, peaceful life. You know what I mean? You just kind of smash down time and time after again. So it's amazing that you've been able to come out of it and do everything that you are doing. It's very inspirational. So the thing, so we like to concentrate on the good stuff, right? Because I think not enough gets spoken about.
That's what recovery is all about.
That's right. But
that's what recovery is all about, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. But I think with you, that you have, from what I've seen through, I discovered you on TikTok and stuff. I don't watch much TV, but you've done shitloads of media and all that stuff about your story. But the thing I like about how you kind of share your story is that, and it's not to like compare with anyone, but, I guess in terms of the life you've lived, and the prisons and, all that stuff, you've really kind of been to the depths with all of that, and met all the characters and done all the stuff and whatever. But so you're able to tell the story, but not kind of glamorize it and glorify it in any way, but really kind of cut through. So I'd love to just ask you some questions about that. So a big thing for you, was you were like a bank robber, right?
Sure. Yeah, I was a bank robber. I was, I had a pretty vivacious heroin habit. I was using $1,500 a day at one time, so I wasn't going to get that from shoplifting, and yeah, it's true. It's true. And you know what? And that's a big thing here. And I just want to do a disclosure, like before I start, I never ever for once in anything I do on social media glamorize crime, because it's not nothing to be glamour, and it's not something. I tell my story openly, and hopefully we can take that glamorization away from it and give it a reality and give it some authenticity at how much fear was based and what the driving the motivation for the crime itself was fear-based, and trauma-based, And I like to add that to it. So when people sort of visualize it or take it all in, they go, fucking, you rob a bank. I was just as fearful as the fucking people in there, you know what I mean? And, and people ask me how, like, I get this fucking thing all the time, and it sort of wears me at times. They go, these stiffs, they'll say, I was sexually abused, or I had this happen to me, I had that, and I didn't rob a bank. Well, that's you.
Yeah.
I like the color pink. Not everyone likes the color pink.
Yeah.
You know, people are different, and that people. And I think what I do, I like to educate those people. I like to open their minds. A big part of what I do is opening people's minds to a different perspective, other than that fucking narrow fucking I don't know that narrow gate that they fucking look through. You know.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I wanted to actually ask you about, because that's one of the videos, and I share the same view as you, just purely through experience and talking to people. Once the evidence is presented to yourself, you can't kind of deny it. But it's really interesting when you make a video on TikTok like that and explain that, it doesn't justify why people are doing things, but there's a reason why people kind of get to the places that they get. And often when you take a look back in people's history and past, there's a lot of trauma in there, isn't there? Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by our outpatient coaching program called Connection-Based Living, where we teach people how to beat addictive patterns without having to go to rehab and without having to stop substances forever if you don't want to. So if that sounds of interest to you, you've wanted to get help, but you don't want to be locked away in rehab for 30, 60, 90 days, you want to make some changes to your substance use, you want to change your relationship to substances, but you want to be able to socially drink in the future, we might be able to help, and we might have some really good options and alternatives for you guys to follow. Connection-based living, book a call, have a chat to us, have a click around on the website. We've got some different things for everybody, no matter what stage you're at, and we hope to be a part of your journey soon. Back to the show.
It's really
dealing with
interesting.
underlying issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm involved in Corrective Services New South Wales, and part of the program I'm designing is let's look at the underlying issue of your offending behaviour, and let's look at the underlying which is normally drug addiction. Let's look at the underlying issue of the drug addiction, which is trauma, 99% of the time. Let's deal with the trauma and work our way, because the drug addiction will make sense. Once you understand the trauma, you'll understand the drug addiction will be so much easier to understand. Once you deal with the trauma, you're halfway there with the drug addiction. And I think, and once you're equipped to deal with trauma, you're basically well on your way to equipped to understand and equipped to deal with the drug addiction. And I get this. I get so much of this. Like I get a lot of positive feedback, and sometimes I can tune into the negative stuff where they're just going, "You didn't say, how like look at the trauma you caused other people." And I did. I fucking did. I put my hand up. Yeah. What do you want? I've apologised 1,100 times. I'll apologise 1,101, but I won't apologise to you because I didn't rob your bank. I didn't rob you. But if you come across the victims, man, I'll apologise to them. Not a problem. If it helps, I've had one victim of one of my crimes go, "Mate, you don't owe anyone any apologies, and fuck them." A woman that was in the bank that I robbed once, she said, "You're doing really good work." And the word is ameliorated out. It's a legal term that sort of say you've done a lot of bad, but you balanced it out with the good that you're doing. You know what I mean? And yeah, no, and it's a funny thing. People want to fucking hang on to shit. Not me. I'm about letting go and moving on. But learning and teaching people from my experience. Yesterday I went to BYDC, it's Brisbane Youth Detention Centre, and they got me to speak to the gangs, the African gang kids, man. Fuck, when you understand them kids, you'll never say a bad word about them never again. Like, I'll come out of there blown away at the fucking trauma that them kids have been through, I went, fuck,
crazy,
I'll never
it?
stand in judgment of them kids. Oh, mate, it's insane what them kids have been through. They're lucky they're alive. Like, a lot of them, man, I understand a big suicide rate amongst young men in this country, and fuck what them kids have been through, man. It was made me really, really sad. Like I felt pumped from being able to go in and talk, and one of the women said to me, "You most really just changed our kids' lives there today." And I said, I'm pumped from that, but I was really sad at what other human beings had perpetrated on them kids for them to be like that, where they had to find validation in gangs and violence.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. So if I can
understand the problem.
100%. 'Cause it's interesting what you just said there. Those kids finding validation in the gangs. If I can take you back to like the first time that you used drugs, or more specifically that you used heroin. Like, what was that experience like for you? Was it actually like a good thing, or was it a bad? Like, yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, for sure. The first injection I had of heroin, I don't know, for me, it made first thing what I do is a big vomit, but it's not like a vomit like when you're hungover or anything. It's actually
Yeah,
a really good feeling. It's had this, yeah,
yeah,
you have a big power spew, but mine wasn't too good. My like because I was being sexually abused while I was vomiting in the toilet. So, but the feeling, once that was over, was that, and often after that was like a feeling of numbness, and it was a feeling the shame and the embarrassment was just not there. It was like I'd never had it. I was like it never existed because me using drugs was a form of escapism,
yeah,
and I was running from something, and it was an escapism of my feelings, and that were really fucking, like, my feelings were very haunting. They were like a nightmare that sent lightning bolts through my body of shame, embarrassment, and that sort of stuff. But when I used drugs, it was pretty calm weather, and I didn't face that sort of thing. So it was sort of a reprieve every time I had it. But then it became the fear with the using drugs that, well, you got to get more because this is going to run out in 2 hours' time, and you're going to be back to that fucking nightmare of thoughts and feelings. You know what I mean? So it was a very harrowing time, and it went for a long, long time. And even when I had that 12 and a half years clean, I still had bad nightmares. I was like, I was just white knuckling it, and I was delaying the inevitable. I was,
yeah,
it was crazy times. What goes through an addict's head? There's so much fear in being an addict, but when you get clean and when you do the right sort of counselling or trauma or whatever, you seem to realise you put those sorts of feelings and thoughts in perspective. Like I guess I read them a lot better these days, but getting back to that feeling of euphoria, like, a lot of people have a shot of heroin and fucking go and sit on the lounge and fucking nod off. I'll fucking mow your lawn. I'll mow your next door neighbour's lawn. I'll wash 6 cars, clean the fucking house. Because that's what it does to me. That's the reaction it had to me. Like, people used to think I was on coke. But I just become this fucking super duper, like, I don't know, like, people have speed, ADD people have speed, and it normalises them. It didn't for me. Heroin just made me take off, man, like,
yeah,
make a goose of myself. Like, but
yeah. That's really interesting.
it was
Yeah,
a feeling I chased for a long time. Yeah, it was a feeling I chased my whole life. I chased it for most of my adult life. This form
yeah,
of escapism, you know. Still, sort of, people say about me, I do escapism in a different sort of way these days. I do it through work. I fucking work big hours. I often work 16 hours, 7 days a week. But but my justification for that is it's not work, it's a passion. You know what I mean? But it's sometimes when I put it in perspective, I think to myself, what am I doing there? You know what I mean? Because I've got an awareness of all my behaviours. I'm hyper vigilant. I've done an interview with Mark Burris, the Yellow Brick Road guy, and he said, I've known you for 5 minutes. He said, I can't believe how vigilant you are and of your surroundings and everything like that. He
yeah,
said, fuck, you got the room covered, you got behind you covered and everything like that. And I think that's been from trauma. I think that's just
yeah.
what trauma leaves you with.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and that's what I was going to ask you. Like, so obviously, it sounds like that in some way, like drugs and heroin were an escape and almost like a really good survival mechanism. And I've heard that from a lot of people, and in a way, same for myself too. But then, like, when you kind of get into that prison system, I was, when I was just like kind of having a bit more of a read about your story on your website. It's, yeah, and I think you mentioned it before, 23 years in prison. Do you think that just kind of intensified trauma and like progressed that negative cycle for you?
1,000,000%, 1,000,000%. Like, jail didn't teach me anything. Well, when you're constantly being told you're a shitbag, see, one of the greatest things to heal trauma is love. And let me tell you, there's no fucking love in prison. There's a lot of hate, and the hate. The prison officers are a pretty sadistic bunch, and they're constantly telling you what a scumbag you are and a shitbag you are, So, there was not much hope of ever really being able to heal from trauma in prison. There wasn't ever really the opportunity to do it. And,
Yeah.
even when the Royal Commission come in, the Royal Commission institution, when I started talking to them, I was in prison. So I started getting weekly and fortnightly trauma counselling, and those prison officers resented that. They resented the fact that there was someone in that office telling me I was a beautiful person, I was worthy of love, and they were resented the fact that someone was helping me rebuild my self belief and my self love. There was a certain resentment towards that, and it was crazy because when I've got self love and self belief, I take my power back. Yeah, when I do that, I'm on my way from healing my trauma. And the best position they want you in is you not liking yourself, you being fully fucking broken, and you being, relying on them, because there's a lot of strength comes with self healing, and there's a lot of strength comes with that. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
strength to fucking heal, and it takes a lot of strength to heal, but it also gives you a lot of strength too, if you know what I mean. It's a
100%.
beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing, and it took me to another point. Today I've got it. No one can tell me I'm a shitbag. No one can tell me that I'm a fucking deserve life-ending sentences or anything, because I'm worthy of a lot more. And that's what I think the whole, breaking that cycle, where it come from. When I realised I was worthy of more than that, like you're sitting in prison, right, and you think this is where I belong. It becomes people will talk about, they'll pull up in a prison van and they'll go, I'm back home. I've heard heaps of blokes say it.
Yeah.
I never subscribed to that. I never ever thought prison was my home.
Mm-hmm.
But I seen why they thought that, because, it was a safe place for a lot of people. It wasn't for me. I never sort of got too comfortable in prison, and because I knew, eventually things were going to crack. And, when I got that self-belief and that self-love and that sort of stuff back, and I didn't get self-belief and self-love back from someone calling me a scumbag. I got someone fucking loving me back. I got love back to health, whether it was through my counsellor or my support people. I got love back to, you know what I mean, love back to good health. And that was really important, because that was the only way I was ever going to work. Having someone tell me I'm a scumbag and scraping me back to the bin, that was never going to work for me.
Yeah, I don't think it. I think you're right. My observation is I don't think it works for anyone, and if it does, it's a very very small percentage. Did you
100%.
use drugs in prison while you were in there, or not so much?
I try to avoid it. Look, I maintain, like, I just seen the drama that drugs cause in jail, and one of the biggest aims for me was to avoid any drama in jail. And it's funny because my life was, a contradiction. In jail, I'm this super fit guy that trains like I'm training for the Olympic Games, train 4 hours a day, fully
Yep.
focused, really clean living, real clean eating. And then I get out, I'm this scumbag, I'm a bottom of the barrel junkie type person. So, my main thing as a coping and survival mechanism in jail was being super duper fit, and and not ever being a victim. So yeah, but there was heaps of drugs and that around me, but it was just something I don't know. There was something in me that was smart enough to sort of say, don't engage in this, because this can get really ugly really quick, and it often does. The stabbings and all the bashings and all that are all drug related.
Yep.
They're all, and there's a link to drugs and everything. So gambling and drug use were two things that I stayed away from in prison.
Yeah. And just like out of interest for people listening, because so many people that listen and reach out to us also, explain that they experience trauma as well. So it's amazing, that you did a lot of that process and started that healing process in prison. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What was the actual therapy that you received? Was it just talk therapy, or were you doing something kind of a bit different? Yeah.
I had an amazing trauma counsellor who really knew her stuff, and I've done that for 4 years with her over the phone, fortnightly over the phone, phone calls, and we never ever met. I never knew what she looked like. had this vision of this little blonde-headed pommy woman that, she actually could have been Indian as far as I knew. But I just had this vision in my head. I had this vision in my head of what she looked like, and I never even went there. I just stuck with that, and she just had some of the. We used to have these really good chats, and we'd do breakdowns on like she'd say, if you could kill a child molester, would you? And I'd say yeah, and then we'd do the stats and how we're going to go about. So we'd plan a murder and then we do the reverse and look at what it's going to cost me. What's the chances of getting caught? 100% of chance of getting caught. What's the consequences? 20 years in prison. What does 20 years of prison do? 20 years of prison amplifies the trauma itself. So that's not even a win-win situation. The problematic instant gratification lasts 5 minutes because you feel good about doing it, and then the consequences come after that. And I guess it's no different than having a shot of ice and just watching it destroy your life,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, really, really interesting. And the other thing I was going to ask you mentioned that I think you said you had 12 years like clean or off drugs before you did that trauma work. How did you get off it initially? What was your process?
I've done a lot of Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and I'm a big fan of NA. I think it works for me, and it works for thousands and thousands of others. And that's not for everyone, but it's for me, and that's my gig. And I've always had a place in NA, no, I find that the game plan for NA is so simplistic. It's a simple program for fucking complicated people, so they say, and that just worked for me. It just worked for me, I just made sense of life in general.
Yeah. That's awesome, mate. Yeah, I did the same. That's how I got clean and sober. Was a lot of fucking NA. And did you do a lot of that in prison, or was that like when you got out of prison and stuff like that?
We started creating our own NA meetings against the prison officers weren't supportive of NA. So what we did was, we got a blue book and we done our own NA meetings, and we had one unit and maybe 5 or 6 of us would do our own meeting once a day, and we we ran our own meetings, and it just worked for us. It worked for it's unfortunately some of them blokes died and didn't get it, but NA works for me, man. And I've got a lot of good friends that are in NA. They've got similar lives to me. They've got purpose and they're doing amazing things, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Awesome. So I'm interested as well because and this interest comes from my experience. Like, there's parts of it that I loved and parts of it that I haven't. Like, years ago when I got sober, I did my story in the media quite a bit. Nothing compared to what you've done, just from a quick Google search. But what was that like when you first started sharing your stories, and how did that come about? And have you enjoyed that process, or has it been a bit like full on in the same sense too?
Oh, look, it's really funny. I had a friend of mine called Daniel King had a shootout with the police in Penrith and got shot dead by the police. And I said to my mate, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to be on Australian Story one day. And Australian Story is one of my favourite programs. And he goes, have you got any content? And he ran my other mate, thought I was fucking losing the plot. And I said, I just think it's going to get interesting enough to warrant that, you know what I mean? And he goes, oh, all right, good luck. He just thought I was losing it. Anyway, when my mate got shot dead, all the media wanted to run a story because I was the last bloke to speak to my mate Daniel King. And I just don't trust the media, especially the Daily Telegraph. And anyway, I got in contact with this woman who was a respected journalist called Deborah Cornwell, who used to be a producer on Australian Story in Four Corners and 60 Minutes, just an amazing woman who's now one of my dear friends. And anyway, I told my story about my contact with Daniel, and she quoted me word for word, and I thought she was just an amazing person, so I stayed in contact with her and give her some leads and some stories and give her some info on some good stories. And anyway, she goes, you've got an interesting Australian story, and she goes, would you consider it? I said, yeah, not a problem. And so we started filming. We filmed 44 hours of 30 for 32 minutes a film,
Wow.
a thing, which included going along Bay and part, and that itself was cathartic. Going
Yep.
along Bay back at the scene of the crime and sort of making peace with that sort of place, and that was good. And then and then coming into my life, and in the process of that, I sort of got attacked by. What happened was some people from the legal fraternity in Queensland sort of tried to attack us and derail that story,
Mm.
because some rich boy lawyers that were worried that we were taking a lot of their work from them in Australian Story. And it was like, so anyway, they tried to railroad it. And I said to Australian Story, if you sort of allow them to win, I said, it's a big loss for survivors. And they just pressed on and we ran the story. So it was really rewarding. That was a good victory. But
Amazing.
the podcast, I've done podcasts with Gary Judel, and who would have thought, like he's an me and him have talked about it. Yeah, him and I have talked. He was pretty confident that he was chasing me at one stage, and I was pretty fucking glad that he didn't get me. But I've done one with him, and I've formed a pretty good friendship with Gary Judel. I'm proud enough to I call a bloke a mate these days, and
Yep.
I never ever thought that. I never ever thought I'd be calling a cop a mate, but I think it's just that sort of an indicator of the progress I've made. And I've done one with Mark Bruce, one of the best businessmen in Australia, and I've done all sorts of boxes, and we're trying to get Julia Gillard where I can get an opportunity to thank her for bringing the Royal Commission in, which changed my life. So I don't know. The podcast series is really good. The work sort of side of the series, I'm doing a lot. I've done a lot of podcasts. I do these podcasts in the hope it might be just that one person that's hearing this that's going, you know what? If this bloke's done it, so can I. If he's started the healing journey, so can I. And it's so rewarding. I'm here to tell any survivor, it's time, man. It's time to stop yourself. Time to fucking stop your suffering, and there's an opportunity right now for you to start healing. And that's what the main aim of the podcast is: get through to as many people as we can. I've done 4 newspaper articles last week, including New Idea magazine, and that's based off my podcast, of my TikTok post. I've done a story about Ivan Milat. Excuse me. I've
No
been up
worries.
since 2 o'clock this morning, working, and
Jeez.
and 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 I've had all these minutes, so I get a lot of it. As you spoke, I've just jumped off the phone to News Corp, and I've just done one with them. But it's all about that, telling that message and telling that story. That one person could pick up that paper, or one person could see that post on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, or that one person could hear the podcast that can change their life. Man, I've had a good day when I hear that. I've had a good
Yeah.
day, man. I've had a really good day when that one person goes, you know what? I'm not suffering like this shit no more. Let's talk about it. And here's a safe platform, because I can guarantee them, I'll provide them with a safe platform to tell their story. And there's the saying, you can't keep what you have unless you give it away. And man, I've been blessed with something that's pretty amazing. And I share it for free and at will, and will give it away all day long in order to keep it.
Yeah. Mate, I must say it's really inspiring, and it's fucking awesome. The other question I wanted to ask you, which I think a lot of people will be interested in, is, I get a lot of calls from people, that have young guys or young ladies that are sort of, coming up to like their 20s or younger. They've been using drugs and they're starting to dip their toe into that sort of like crime world and just getting mixed up in all of that. Like, how do you
Yeah.
like talk to people about that? If you do, how do you try and steer them away from it? Like, what would be kind of your tips and tricks around connecting with people on that level?
Sure. I like to talk about the loneliness of it. It's a lonely old place, and do you love your family? Because you're going to cause your family a fucking lot of pain going through that. And if you think you're in pain, you're going to fucking amplify the pain. You're going to pass the baton of that pain on to your family. And that's the thing. You go into the jails and everything like that. So you are allowing people to treat your family really, really bad. It's not a glamorous life. There's nothing glamorous about sitting in a prison cell with a bloke that's got irritable bowel syndrome at 6 o'clock in the morning. There's nothing glamorous about that. There's
Yeah.
nothing glamorous. Yeah, no, nothing. There's nothing glamorous about that. There's nothing glamorous about being locked in a cell for fucking 9 days straight without a shower and stinking like a polecat. There's nothing fucking glamorous about fucking your family coming to visit you and they're getting treated worse than any fucking criminal. There's just nothing glamorous of going for a truck ride, prison van ride, and fucking a couple of screws thinks it's really funny to turn the heater on a fucking 40-degree day. You know, there's nothing glamorous about this sort of stuff. There's nothing glamorous in going around traumatizing innocent people that are going about their daily, just doing their job. There's nothing glamorous about, you know, in particular, I've never been a drug dealer, but there's nothing glamorous about selling drugs to people that are going to fucking destroy their lives and keep them in their pain and not allow them to heal and just prevent them from healing. There's nothing glamorous about it. There's nothing glamorous about being strip searched and fucking upended and basically being sexually abused by fucking prison officers so they can satisfy their fucking disgusting fucking suspicions. You know, it's nothing glamorous about, you know, police fucking robbing you for everything you've got and then fucking pointing the finger at and saying you're a bad criminal. There's nothing glamorous in the criminal life. I'm here to tell you now. There's nothing glamorous. It's fucking really, really lonely. And I think for me that was one of the biggest things. For like a bloke once told me in prison, I was trying to pick his brain about doing bank robberies. This is before I ever become a bank robber. And he said it's a lonely old life of a bank robber, and he was so right. But I didn't realise how lonely it was going to be. It was very fucking sad. And all these tough guys with face tattoos and neck tattoos and their hands all tat up, I'm telling you, they're no different to me. They cry themselves to sleep every fucking night in there.
Yeah.
No fucking. It's just nothing. Yeah. I say this, and my favourite movie is a movie called Bronx Tale, and it's got Robert De Niro. He's a bus driver in it. And the kid talks about, you know, these gangsters being his hero. And he said the real hero, and Robert De Niro, the bus driver, says, you know, the real hero is the working man. The bloke that gets up and put food on his family, rain, hail or shine, that's the real hero. And fucking that resonates with me these days. I never used to look at it in that way. And I'm that bloke these days. I'll fucking get up now. As I said, I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning, and my day's not going to finish until 10 o'clock tonight. But, you know, I've got so much peace. And you can't buy peace. And I'll tell you what, that whole criminal life is you're looking over your shoulders from the coppers, but I'll tell you what's developing even worse. You're looking over yourself from the crims that one will tell on you, or two just come in and fucking torture you and take everything you've got. You can all have all that in 1 minute and then gone in the next. They turn up with a couple of blowtorches. I'll tell you, you get a blowtorch applied to your foot, mate, you're giving them everything. It doesn't matter how tough you are.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah. It's amazing. Do you think it takes people like yourself that have had that experience to be able to communicate that message? You know, like, do you think if you had you talking to you when you're a bit younger, that had been through the whole thing and was basically just telling you exactly what you just said then, do you think that would have curbed what happened in your life?
I think what would have happened, I mightn't have got it there and then, but I would have got it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I think I would have got a lot quicker because I'm not going to listen. The thing about trauma, or people like, in particular, those kids I went and seen at the boys' home yesterday, that they'll see through a fraud. Those kids are too street. They're too fucking smart. They'll see if it's a university education or a street education. You know what I mean? There's a big difference. You turn up and talk in these big, long-winded words that make no fucking sense to a street kid, or you just talk up and you speak their language. I think that's always one of those cases. Is someone communicating to me in my language was always going to work for me a lot better. You know, I think there's a lot of places now, in particular Corrective Services New South Wales, I've realised that lived experience will beat a fucking university degree any day now. You know, and so I think lived experience. You know, my lived experience. I try. That's what I do. I pass it around, whether it be on TikTok or visiting jails or boys' homes, or anything. My lived experience. Apparently, it's worth something because they're paying me to do it.
Love it. So tell us everything you're doing now. So you've got your organisation, Voice of a Survivor, and you got the podcast, the Stick Up podcast. Is that right? The Stick Up, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got the Stick Up podcast. You can get that on Spotify, YouTube. It's coming on the YouTube and iTunes, and doing a bit of work. I'm it's slowly kicking off when I'm going into boys' homes and jails, and I go in there and do mentoring talks, and we're trying to create a program that provides wraparound support for people when they're getting out of prison. So a bloke I might have a case file of 30 people. I've been out of jail for 10 years, and I've turned my life around. I've got a case load of sort of 30 people that I've got to oversee and make sure that they're supported. They go to the RTA to get their license. They feel like using drugs, they can ring me up at 10 o'clock at night and I can sit there and have a yarn and talk them out of it, There's people that have that experience that know what these people are going through. So this program is really important at what I want to do. I think we can make a massive difference in the community with it. And so I'm involved in that. Voice of the Survivor is stronger than ever. I've got about 7 clients today. So we're averaging out about 54, 55 clients a week through the Voice of the Survivor. That's survivors that have told this story for the first time. That's not going anywhere. It's actually increasing because we're really making a big presence in Victoria, South Australia and Western Australia. Mainly we've been in New South Wales and Queensland, but our presence has been known down there. And one person tells you about the abuse and that one person will tell their 4 friends that were abused. So that's how it pans out,
Yeah. So with that, you said that you've had 16,000 clients, is that right? Through Voice of a Survivor?
Yeah, 16,000 survivors.
What's obviously you got your own story and all the experiences you've had there, but what's the biggest thing that you've learned from all the clients that you've helped and serviced over the years? Is there any really big key takeaways?
100%. It's that authenticity, isn't it? For me, it's just always remain authentic. I think I've had law firms that wanted me to tell things a bit different, and I just can't do that. That's about, for me, it's just about, and that's what attracts people to the company itself, is the authenticity of it all. I'm here, I'm not hiding nothing. As I say before we do an interview, man, the gloves are off. Hit me with everything you got. So it's really important that that people just know that these people are real. I'm fucking real. I'm so passionate. If I hear my staff talking a certain way, I'll monitor them. Say, man, you can't talk like that to these people. These people are, I don't know, they're broken, and you can't have a superiority complex with them. You've got to be, they're special people, man. They're beautiful people when they allow you in, and it's a gift that we get given when they tell us their story. That is a gift. That this person's told us their deepest, darkest secrets, and we're gonna fucking nurture them back in the healing. We're gonna help them heal. We're gonna treat it fucking like it deserves to be treated. We're gonna treat it softly and kindly and compassionate and empathetic, and we're gonna give these people some love. It's our job to fucking help these people feel loved. It's a lot of love to give, man. 16,000 clients, but we're up to it. We don't fail.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how I like to finish the podcast so that people are kind of left on a bit of a entertained note to then go and find you and follow up and, consume all your stuff is tell us the worst kind of experience that you've had around whether it's drugs and alcohol and crime, and then, the best experience that you've had now kind of in recovery and the time that your life's been changed.
The worst experience, I witnessed 2 murders at Goulburn Prison. I was there when 2 people got killed, so that was pretty daunting and pretty horrific. That sort of, there's images there that will actually never go away. The best was about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, laying in bed with my partner about 6 o'clock in the morning, laying there in total euphoria and just feeling fully fucking healed, feeling I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, just laying there, being right in that moment and saying, fuck, this is what it feels like to be healed. This is what it feels like to be completely at peace. This is what it feels like to be completely happy. And I reckon that moment, and I had to do a podcast about 6 hours later, and I talked about in that podcast about this feeling. And I think if I only got to experience 5 minutes of that in my life, I had a pretty good life. But the beauty about that feeling, it's continued on there because I've acknowledged it. I've been grateful for it, because I'm big on gratitude. I'm big on waking up every morning, telling my girlfriend how lucky I am and how beautiful she is, and then pointing out the fact that I can see and I can breathe, and because my gratitude Gratitude is the conduit to your happiness and peace. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
when you acknowledge what you're grateful for, you will invite in more good stuff. There's no doubt about it. And that's I live with that. I live by it. People, this new fancy word about putting it out to the universe. Man, I've been daydreaming my whole life. I
Yeah.
just call it daydreaming, visualizing, or whatever, what I want. And I've tried to satisfy myself with material things and never worked. I had all that nice stuff, or so-called nice stuff, and nice cars and watches and all that. That's not where my happiness comes from being of service to others and watching other people grow and being part of people's healing journey. That's where my true contentment and satisfaction comes from.
Amazing, mate. Hey, how things can change, huh? So Russell Manser,
Yeah,
everybody, follow him. Check out all his stuff. He's doing amazing things. And yeah, thanks so
yeah.
much for coming on, mate. Can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate you having me on here. I really do.
No
Think
worries.
it's been
No
great.
worries.